Hey everyone, once again this is Joe from Joyful Noise Productions, here to bring you a breakdown of a mix that I recently did with a friend of mine. So if you do me a favor, like this video, share it to all your friends, and don't forget to subscribe, and also hit that notification button so that way you get the latest information and also when the next video drops. So without any further ado, let's get into it. This breakdown we're about to do was a song that I released about a few weeks ago. If you guys remember, it was, or if you go into the showcase playlist, it was known as the End of the World by the Freddie Garza Project. Well, the reason why it's the Freddie Garza Project, because this was an inspiration from my friend. He wanted to put some ideas that he had, and he looked to me for me to help him out. So I decided to jump along in there with him. We put some of his ideas together, and we also brought in another friend whose name is Wayne Davis. For the record, we're all church buddies, so we decided to put this all together and to come up with what we came up with a few weeks ago. Now we're going to do the breakdown of how all that goes. But before I go any further, I have to make this clear. I am not a Grammy Award winning producer. Okay, let's get that out of the way, because there's a lot of people out there that are looking to kind of go after other people for dumb reasons, and I think it's pretty retarded, but it is what it is. Two, I don't have any hit records that I put out. I'm an up and coming audio engineer, just who's out there struggling with others, just like any others who are just trying to not really make it big, but at least make some money with an art that they love and cherish very much. And some of the information that I have gotten is what they would say passed on information. So to get all that out of the way, now we can be able to talk about the whole essence of the song. Now, this whole song revolves around a bass line. Okay, the reason it revolves around the bass line, because that's where all the ideas came from. So what we're going to do is that we're going to jump right into the DAW, and we're going to talk about how all this works together. So let's go into it right now. Now, as you see right here, I got my DAW. Okay, and you see right here, these are the channels in the mix of the parts of the instruments that are involved in this. Okay, obviously, one thing I've learned, and I continue to have done this for quite a long while now, is always to have what they call a cue track. The reason why you want to keep the cue track is to kind of let you know where you're at in the song. Now, in the case of Wayne, he kind of needed to know where everything was at. So this red part right here is his MIDI drum track. I'll explain how we did the recording for that. Now, as you see right here, this is the synth parts that I kind of put in it. Not very much, just very subtle, not too much in it. Obviously, I got some guitar effects right here, because since the way this was recorded, I'm still working on something like that. Also right here, these are the guitar tracks. These two right here are what I would call the unprocessed tracks. I'll explain that as we go further in. Also right here, these are my reamp tracks, or your process tracks, what I call them. And also right here is the bass. Now, the reason I highlight them up like that, so that way you can see why the bass was kind of the important essence of this song. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mute these tracks, so that way we can kind of get a little focus on what we're doing here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the media file. Okay. Now, the way this song was set up, it came off this track right here, which is bass take 2, which is actually should have been bass take 1, because this is the phrase that the whole song is based on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pop it up right now, and you're going to see it's almost like in a loop fashion. So as you begin to hear it, and it's the same exact riff over and over again. Now, when Freddie originally did this, he did it with with a drum track, with a drum track behind it, so that way he's able to lay it down. Now, as you can see, it did change key, but when you hear it, it's going to kind of change back into the original. So it kind of goes back into the rhythm all over again. Now, also right here, we got the take one, which was the other one. Okay, this one was kind of what I would call the verse section of it, because the way it broke up. Now, this is what it sounded like. So as you probably hear, this is the reason why I kind of set it up like that. So as you hear, it repeats itself. Now this one is what I would call like the turnaround, or the build, or the break. Now here's what we use in it. Now, most of the song kind of goes through it like that. Now, as you come right over here, it's pretty much the same thing. So it pretty much report itself. So as you hear it, even though there's some other little parts that are involved in it, but when it comes to what Freddie needed it done, we just needed just enough just to kind of get it where it was at. So so let's go ahead, let's kind of break down the bass sound and how it would actually sound like. So this is what it sounds like, dry as itself. As you can see right here, this is kind of like the phrase part about it, okay? Then right here, we're gonna kind of go jump right here into the verse. So as we continue to play on, again, this is parts of the bass that I had put together. Here's the third part about it. The reason I'm kind of skipping over it fast, so I can be able to kind of explain how all this comes together. Now, the reason why these basses are the bass line is almost like precise in the way the way it's been put together, is because one thing about Freddie, he understood his part and understood himself as a bass player, knowing that everything lands and falls on the bass because he's part of the rhythm section. When you're a bass player, you need to understand how your bass parts come together and the importance of your bass. So when I broke these parts up, I broke them up where it was in conjunction with the drums. So let me kind of put the drums right in here real quick. So this was what it sound like with the drums. So as you see, it's almost like precision timing in everything. So when the drums play along with it, even when it does its fills and stuff like that, it makes the song stand out, and it gives the song some feel for it. Now let's go to the other part and you can see even more. Now same thing right here. So, you know, again. So, bass players, you need to understand how important it is to really be like almost like dirt tight on your drumming. I mean, on your playing, because the music relies on that. And yes, Glenn, there are bass players who can actually play bass.
These guys make sure when things start going right, they make it go wrong.
Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into the mix of this. Now, the way I built this up is that, okay, there we go. I kind of use what they call a dual amp setup, and obviously we're using my guitar rig on this one. I got what they call a mix splitter, where I can be able to get the same signal and split it into two different types of sources. Right here, obviously, I got a plexi along with using a Mesa Boogie cabinet. Okay. Now also right here, I'm using an old school Ampeg, which is called the Bass Rage. Now I have this set up at dub bass, because the dub bass kind of gives it like that subwoofer kind of feel to it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of play you the different sounds that are found on it. Let me make sure I kind of set drums off on this one. Okay, so we're just going to you're just going to hear the sound of the A mix. So this is what it's going to sound like. So as you see, the way I have it set up, it gives it some bit of a grind, and I also kind of lowered the bass on this so that way the mids and the treble would focus on it. Or in the words of Christian Cola, a dangle. So also what I'm using here, I'm also using the 412 Mesa Boogie cabinet, which gives it that mid focus kind of feel to it. So now, if I decide to kind of so let's kind of go with this here. So now I switched it over to the Bass Rage. So as you get to see with the old school SVT, it has that subwoofer, so you can be able to still feel that low end rumble as you put up. Now obviously I kind of have to kind of mix it in just nice and easy, so it gives that grind, but at the same time gets that subwoofer. Because when you put distortion to a bass sound, it kind of removes that low end. So that's why sometimes you have to use a separate bass amp or you have to split the signal in order to make it nice and full. And I know if even if Glenn watches this, he's probably going to tell me, well, why don't you just buy my Spectre Element bass? I'm kind of broke right now, so anyway. Now, to clean it up a little bit, because when Freddie was listening to the bass parts, he kind of had a little issue with it. So, as you see right here, I got my equalizer along with my bass, with my compressor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean the sound up a little bit. So you see, I got a little bit of the highs on. I got the high mid frequencies and the low mid frequencies turned down. Now, as you see right here, when it comes to my cues, I kind of keep them right at zero, so that way it kind of keeps everything at level. Now, if I want to kick this up, I can be able to just turn it up this way. But I try to keep everything at level. So this is what it sounds like when I got this setting put up. But also, you see right here, I also got the low frequencies kind of tamed a little bit. So the notes are still pronounced, but at the same time it keeps that grind in there. So as you begin to notice, this is how I begin to start kind of working with the sound as I kind of have to make everything shifted. Now remember, everything gets balanced out first before I actually do any EQing, in which I did with this. Now, since we did a little bit of the bass, now we're going to the guitars. As I mentioned earlier, this is what I would call the unprocessed sounds. The reason why I call them the unprocessed sounds, because these sounds are just straight out from the guitar. But before I forget, the bass sound you heard in that was actually a Music Man Stingray. So that's why it has a little bit of that beef the way it does and sounds as that sound. So just gotta remember that. But as you see right here, this is right here is where the guitar sounds are unprocessed, and I'll explain the sim I used on this one. However, when it came to the guitar part, I was using a Gibson SG Basher. It was like an E series guitar line that came out with Epiphone a long time ago. I always wanted one of those, but let's just say now it's become a project guitar. So hopefully video will come out for it pretty soon. Now let's kind of hear how it would sound, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of mute this out so that way you would hear how this thing would sound. Now I had this thing tuned in drop D, and you can probably hear I'm jumping between a drop D and E, and in a sense it's kind of countering the bass part, but it kind of gives it its own little bit funk. So it kind of sounds like it's going along with the bass, but without actually going along with the bass. So I use that to kind of give the song that edge it needed. Now when it comes to the guitar sound, as you see right here, I'm using one of my go-to plugins, which is the Audio Salt amp blocker. See, one of my amp blocker suites is the PV5150 Plus, basically with the block letter design sound to it. Besides, this is not my own. This is something I just picked up and just said, okay, let's see how it works. Just because I do have my own, and you see it's got a Mesa Boogie along with another one that's right here, and I never knew which one this one was, but that was the one that was supposed to be used with in this combination, in this setup, to kind of give it the sound that it needed. I usually use the SMG IRs because I like the way they sound. But anyways, this is what it would sound like with the guitar simulator. So it has a little bit of a muddy sound to it, but that's okay. Just want to kind of give you a little bit of an idea how it would sound like. Now, as you see, these are dual tracked. So as you see, that's probably the reason I call it an unprocessed, because on the next two tracks, you're going to hear something totally different. I'm just going to put this right here in the middle. Now, the amp I used on this one was the mini boutique amps, which are, I'll see one of my guys, the Diesel VH Micro. Obviously, I like that amp because it has a little bit more of a sludgier sound to it, so I'd be able to mix two guitar sounds together and be able to kind of get a totally different sound, which will kind of cut right through a little bit. And I also decided to make a different approach to it. I decided to use what they call the Swedish guitar sound. One of the pedals that I have, if you watched my my video, one of the pedals I have is called the DoD FX56 American Metal pedal. That at the time it competed with the Boss HM2 heavy metal pedal. They were both supposed to kind of give us that Swedish chainsaw metal sound. So I decided to put that one to the use because I was kind of a DoD fan at the time, but I also put an Amazon drive pedal right in front of it, so that way it can be able to clean it up, tighten up the sound a little bit. And this is what it sounds like. So I did these two. So obviously I did these two separately. That's why they kind of have a little bit of a doubling kind of sound to them. So this is what it would sound like if I put the. So now, in case some are wondering, okay, now here's where we're gonna clean it up a little bit. As you probably see, I'm using a high pass filter, just to kind of get all the heights in there as much as possible. But you see, I don't have it too rolled back too far low, so that I can still get a little bit of the bass in there. You see right here, the lows are down, but as you see, I got a lot of mids, but at the same time, I got a lot of highs on it because I wanted to bring out the presence. So when he cleans it up, it's gonna sound something like this. But at the same time, I don't want to put too many highs on it. As you see right here. Then obviously, as you see the cues, it kind of moves in various different ways. So, like for example, so the reason I wanted to put a little more presence in it, so that way it kind of cuts right through the mix. Now, another thing I use to kind of widen up the sound of the guitars is the Brainworks shred spreader. Anyways, what this does, it kind of simulates the cavities being spread way out, so that way you kind of get that stereo width that you need. Let me give you a bit of an idea. So as you probably hear it, it pops right out a little bit more, so I think it gives it more width. Now, if I kind of use, so as you can see, it kind of gives it more of a dull sound, and obviously, so let's just kind of go. So let's just kind of go with the low. Let's just go back to the. Now, also to kind of even make it even more, even though I could just stuck with this, but we're also going to use the Voxingo stereo type, which kind of widens it even more, kind of gives it a little more space, more air, because this is more of a delay, so it kind of opens it up even more. So when I put these two together along with the so when you hear it, you're like, wow. Same time, it gives the guitars the beef it needs, but at the same time, you can still be able to hear the nuance of the bass sound as it goes through. Now, as you see right here, this is all a MIDI signal. Now, one thing about the MIDI file right here, obviously it was done by electronic drums. Now, the way we recorded it, we did it all this over at Wayne's house, because we were trying to do it here, but the setup that I had wasn't cooperating that day. However, what I did do is that when I went to Wayne's house, I did recognize that we did have a little bit of a mapping problem. What I mean is that the MIDI notes for drums on a Roland are different from general MIDI or from any other drum suite that may be available to them. So the way we had to record it is that we still had to feed his drums into a separate amp, and we just had to lower down the channel of the drums that we were recording on. So I had to remap so I had to set it up like that. I was able to nail his parts, get his parts recorded, and he nailed it with precision. Now, when I got home, obviously I had to reinvert the mapping on it, and I did it with this guy right here. This guy right here is called the MIDI remap. So in case you got, programs that, that don't quite line up with general MIDI, what this does for about $3 a month, you could be able to convert any drum sound from one source to another. So in this case, what we were using obviously was the Roland. So I went with the Roland mapping on it, which was the TD series, or the TD17 in this one's case. So we just, we use that, and also, and because we were using a drum suite called Ugertone drums, which I'll talk about later. In other words, the mapping that comes off the Roland will translate where the Uger drum suite will understand it. So this is how this would work. So what I did was, before I actually did all that, I decided to kind of I decided to remap it myself. So that way it lines up with the drums. That way it lines up with all the noise that you hear in the drums. Now right here, this is my Uger drum kit. Now I'll see right here, I'll kind of explain it a little bit. If you look right over here, as you can see, I got a lot of drums right here, but the one we're using right now is this one right here, which is called the Total Studio Drums. However, this is called the Angry Drum. This is the reason they call it an angry drum, because I kind of changed some bit of the drum settings around. Now, the only thing I did change on it, the only thing I changed on it was the snare, because I guess Freddie and I were kind of messing around with the drum sounds a little bit, and we came up with the snare drum sound that's on this one. Oops. Okay. Let's see. Angry drums. Okay. Gotta go back to that. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now we would use certain, so it had a certain type of, the snare had a certain type of sound to it that made me appreciate it a little bit. So if anybody hears that drum sound is very familiar and reminiscent to Saint Anger, and that caught Freddie's attention. So we decided to go with that one. So when you hear the drums, it's going to sound something like this. Can I go back here a little bit? Yeah. So, I mean, when you think about the Uger drums, this is what's coming up. Here we go. Okay, there we go. So, as you can hear, this is what the drums sound like in their raw form. Now, you could actually mix with the suite itself. So you see right here, you got all your levels right here. Okay, you got your effects, which includes like your lows, highs, mids. You even have some bit of compression and some bit of your effects in. But this thing has what they call output routings. So where you can be able to use your own setup. And so in this case, as you probably see with me, I'm able to use what I have right here. So now, as you probably hear, the drums, the snare drum sounds a little weak. So what we're gonna do is what I normally do in this one to kind of give a little more body is to put a snare to it. So. Now, also, one thing I also do, and this is also as well, is also I add a drum roll. Okay, so now with this one, also I'm gonna just kind of put this. So as you see, it opens up a little bit more. Now, on this one, we're gonna kind of go with the room. Now, a lot of people who usually mix with MIDI drums will tell you need to kind of get a bit of simulate a room sound. And on this one, as you see, you got room for drums. So it's going to kind of change. It's going to change it up a little bit. So as you hear now the drums have a little bit more bigger sound to them. And obviously, I use my trusty old Neutron 3. Some people say, well, you should get 4 or 5 already by now. And like I said, if it ain't broken, why fix it? Okay, so, but this one has a drum squasher, so it's gonna kind of give it a little more, cut to it. And plus, this kind of went with the song, as opposed to maybe to others, you might need different types of equalization for it. So. So as you hear now, when you hear the whole thing put together, it just kind of cuts right through. Now you can hear right here, you get to hear the synth bass coming in. Now the reason I kind of put these here to kind of give the sound a little bit of character, but as you notice in certain areas it's not very pronounced, but there's a reason for it. Again, it's to give the song character. So when you put the whole song together, it's going to give that sound that is needed to make it stand out the way it does. I didn't really do too much of it, but as you probably notice, I don't put too much EQ, especially on the guitar area, and maybe just a little bit of EQing right here. I mean, I could just put everything right up here, but I just decided just to kind of get the individual sounds, because as you see right here, this is a WAV file and this is a MIDI file, so I have to kind of make them mesh a little bit. But on the guitars, you probably see I use very little EQ, and I just need just enough just to get it up. And remember, the key is always this: you level everything up, then you kind of just, it's kind of like sanding. It takes a while, but once you kind of get through it, it works out pretty well. That's why I still stand to the one video that I put where EQ tricks do not always work, because every sound is different. And as you get to notice right here, this is what this mix looks like. So this is what I do in my mixing process. Everybody's process is a bit different. Like I said, there's different approaches to it. However, the goal is just to make the song pop and make it stand out. So let me know what you think. Okay, maybe if there's maybe you may have some ideas and stuff like that, or tell me what you think of the song in general. But again, I'm gonna on the end card, I'm gonna give you the link to the video so you can check out the whole mix of what it sounded like. So again, like, share, and subscribe this video, and hope to see you on the next one. So until next time, peace out.